There we go. What's up, horror fans? This is Pete from the Lassercast, with me and my very good friend over there, Dr. Zayas God, who's lifting up his shirt over there and showing a pumpkin. What is up with that? It's a pumpkin with shades?
The pumpkin emoji with shades on it.
Okay, there we go. He's over here. He's rocking an emoji shirt, and it's time for us to talk about Monarch, Legacy of Monsters, Episode 4. Danny, we gave so much praise for the first 3 episodes of this show, and now I almost feel a little embarrassed that we did. What about you?
Yeah. I literally right before we started recording, I said the sentence, this was kind of a nothing episode. Right. This kind of felt like, and I feel like we've encountered this before with Yellow Jackets. And I think this is kind of a trope of TV shows where, especially limited series, typically this is like a streaming thing. Because, back in the day, you would have on regular television, you would have a season of a show would go like 23 episodes.
Yeah.
On streaming, typically you get anywhere from 8 to 12 episodes of your show. And I feel like you really come out of the box firing and you build to a big conclusion. And then there's kind of those episodes in the middle that kind of just exist to pad runtime.
Yes.
And I did not hate this episode, but it did kind of feel like nothing really went on. We got a lot of background. One of the things that we said was I like that in the first 3 episodes, they gave us clues. They trusted us to, use context to kind of understand the relationship between Kentaro and May. And then I felt like they kind of went back on that in this episode by showing us how they met and the beginning of their relationship, which honestly, great. Didn't need to see it.
Right.
I thought Kurt Russell was fine, but he kind of just, yelled, run and get down. And they dealt with the same Titan from last episode, the one they introduced at the end, who's a cool monster, but he was the, I think, only monster in this episode. And yeah, it was 40 minutes. We didn't get any of the Wyatt Russell, Anders Holm, Mary Yamamoto trio. They were completely absent from this episode. I hope that we haven't seen the last of them of the series. Obviously, they are flashback characters. And yeah, this episode was just kind of a little bit of flashback, a little bit of running from a monster, a little bit of hallucinogenics, and then, they kind of Deus Ex Machina got saved at the end and, taken to the next part of the, to the next level, almost video game style, where they'll have to, probably discuss what happened and move on to the next monster or Titan. So yeah, I don't want to say this was a bad episode. It just kind of felt like padding the runtime of a season.
Yeah, 1,000% agree. The whole time I'm watching it and anticipating recording with you, I'm like, there's one word that just keeps going over and over in my mind: filler. Right? It's just like, this is just a filler episode. I'm sitting here while I'm listening to you talk. I was like, okay, like, what are they really trying to accomplish, like, with this episode? And what are they trying to accomplish with this show in general? Like, is the idea like, okay, well, now we're going to flesh out these other characters? Because the show, what was working in those first 3 episodes was the idea that there's this, like, trio of people that essentially are, like, the founders of Monarch, and there's a love triangle between them. Then we see, like, their children and, like, Kurt Russell in the present day, and it's like what they've become essentially. Like, that's intriguing stuff, but then in this episode it's like removed completely. Like you just said, that the whole Wyatt Russell part of the show is just missing, and I really missed it this episode. I was like, wow, okay, The President's Day stuff is great. Like Kurt Russell just automatically is charismatic and interesting no matter what he does. Even if
Yeah.
he's just like, get out of here, we gotta go. Like, even if it's just that, it's still great because it's Kurt Russell. But honestly, out of those three new characters, or the modern day characters, to me, Kate is really the most intriguing one. Kentaro, I care about, but like, I don't know if I want to watch a whole episode of his backstory.
Yeah. You know, I struggle to, like, again, it's a limited series. So, there's only X amount of minutes to fill. And
Yeah.
you have this concept. And I guess I kind of explained why I wasn't the biggest fan of the movie part of this franchise.
Right.
Is that I felt, it can't be this hard to make compelling monster movies.
Right.
And I felt like the first 3 episodes in this show were doing a really good job. They were building the mystery around what Monarch was. They were building the mystery of, this kind of like multi-government conspiracy to hide the monsters. We were seeing different monsters attack in various places. And then this episode kind of, like you said, it took a step back, and it made me kind of start to question, like, oh no, is this part of that monster verse that I don't particularly like? Where, I'm rewatching the 2014 Gareth Edwards Godzilla movie, and it's on HBO Max, or Max, sorry. And so I didn't have to rent it, thank goodness. And it's a perfectly well-made movie. Mm-hmm. But I'm legitimately now just past the hour into the movie. It's 2 hours and 3 minutes. I'm past the midway mark, and we have seen Godzilla on frame for 1 second before the camera cut, and the fight scene between Godzilla and the first Muto was done and was shown while Aaron Taylor, I almost combined, what's his name? Aaron Taylor Johnson?
Yes.
It's not fair that there's an actor named Aaron Taylor Johnson and an actress named Anya Taylor-Joy.
I knew you were going to say that.
They exist at the same time. That's not.
Yes.
But yeah. Aaron Taylor Johnson's son is watching the Muto fight on a newsreel, and that's all we got. So for the first hour, Godzilla is barely in his Godzilla movie, which is the thing that drove me crazy about this movie. It's like, it was 2014. Everyone knows who and what Godzilla is. Why are we hiding him?
Right.
And now we're now a decade past that. Mm-hmm. It's 2023. It's the end of 2023. We're watching a show involving Monarch, and I feel like they're still kind of like hiding the stuff we want to see, and they're putting the focus in the wrong places. Like, we both talked about how we like these characters, but why do I need to see Kentaro's art exhibition?
Exactly.
And why do I have to see, the beginning of his romance with May? When like, I have a brain, I'm able to read the context that they were a couple and that they are not anymore, and that there were issues.
Right.
And so, like, it just feels, like it feels like we're going to get an episode next week where we find out about, like, why Kate got into teaching.
Exactly.
And dear Lord, if we get that, I might have to pull the plug on this show. And I don't want to get over dramatic, because, again, at the end of the day, this was a 41-minute episode of television with no commercials, effectively, streaming, Apple TV, of course. It was a 41-minute episode with no commercials. I don't regret that I watched it. I just don't feel I got anything out of it. I don't feel like this pushed the narrative of the show a little bit, a tiny little bit at the end, where that, we get that character, Tim. Every time I hear Tim, I just think of Monty Python, the Holy Grail.
Right.
But we get the Monarch character of Tim. I'm that weird guy who's in the basement all the time. But, like, he seems like he knows what's going on and is going to, have like some kind of big exposition dump in episode 5. But yeah, I'm looking forward to episode 5. But I think the biggest problem for me, especially,
Yeah.
is I just saw Godzilla -1.
Mm-hmm.
Posted a short review on our channel.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go on social media, all you will see is the absolute showering of praise for
Right.
Godzilla -1. And it is
Right.
so justified. I was a kid who grew up renting Godzilla VHS tapes from the video store. I've seen almost all of the, rubber suit Godzilla movies. I actually just rewatched Godzilla 1954, the original Godzilla movie, which is also streaming on Max.
Right.
And it's fantastic. And Godzilla -1 was not just maybe the greatest Godzilla movie I've ever seen, but it also had one of the best human stories that I've seen. To see that, it kind of forces the MonsterVerse to raise the game a little bit.
Yeah.
Because if Japan is coming out and making these fucking epic Godzilla movies, I didn't see Shin Godzilla, which came out about 5-6 years ago, but I heard great things about that. I actually just bought it on Prime because it was on sale for like $5.
Nice.
I feel like I'm just trying to name every streaming service. But if Japan, my point is, if Japan is making excellent Godzilla movies,
right,
MonsterVerse really needs to up their game. And if this episode, I'm hoping this is just one of those filler episodes in the middle chunk of a let's say it's a 9-episode series. What is this, 10 episodes?
Yeah.
So like I kind of figure, in a 10-episode series, episodes 4 through 6, maybe 4 through 7 are kind of be where the filler goes.
Yeah.
Before, you get that good start and then you hit that awesome climax and you're kind of stuck in the middle with a little bit of this and that. So I'm kind of hoping this is not a prelude of what is coming in the next couple of episodes where they're kind of just like blah, boring filler. But yeah, I got my Godzilla fill on Thursday night with Godzilla -1. And, I just hope this series get back to the things that we, like you said, we were like, I reached out to you and I was like, holy shit, man. Like, I haven't even liked the MonsterVerse, but this series is really good. And then we made the decision to cover it. And so now I'm kind of like, all right, well, hopefully we'll see where it goes,
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you and I have covered quite a few streaming shows at this point together, whether it's on this channel or it's on Comic Books Transformed. Like we've done The Peripheral and we've done Raised by Wolves, all these different shows that have different concepts. And you come to expect things from watching streaming shows. And there's always this like overarching storyline and there's little clues. And if you have flashbacks like you might on, let's say, Yellow Jackets, you'll have little beats where they're like, okay, this is the thing you're excited about. We're not going to give you the answers yet, but we're going to give you one little piece of it right now. So that way you're excited. And that way this one episode isn't a waste of an episode. Now,
and also, you brought up Yellow Jackets. What Yellow Jackets does so effectively is when we do a flashback, we're seeing a character that we know in the present. So we're learning something about their background. And then that typically comes back to impact them in the modern times, like Melanie Linsky's character or, Van, we learned something about her back in the 90s and then we skip forward to the 2020s and, that makes sense.
right.
Like, I just can't imagine, like, if Kentaro and May end up falling back in love, which is fine, am I going to have to know how they met? Does that matter? And and that's where my biggest like issue was with this episode.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And like if you think about what's appealing about the show? Why did we like the first 3 episodes? And I personally think it's just the idea that you have a group of people that in the past they're like, oh shit, there's gigantic monsters. What are we going to do about it? How are we going to like control them? How are we going to like let them not destroy the world? Like that's intriguing stuff. That's interesting stuff to be like, okay, I live on a world where a thing like Godzilla exists. um in this, you made a really good point earlier before. You said that the creature in the ice is the only creature you see in this episode. There's no other creatures. And I mean, it's an intriguing creature. It looks cool, but it's pretty much a one and done kind of thing, a one trick pony. It sucks the heat out of things, and it's going after the heat. So after it goes after fire or like the engine of a jet, it's going to go after humans who generate body heat, right? And that's fun, but it's not really something that sustains interest for a whole episode. Like you were talking about how there's Shin Godzilla and there's Godzilla minus one, and Godzilla is owned by Toho. The MonsterVerse isn't just Godzilla, right? It's like Rodan, Mothra, King Ghidorah,
King Kong.
King Kong. It has all these different monsters. It's like you're going to spend it on this one creature that looks cool, but like there's nothing much more to it. Like you could be doing more with it.
Well, yeah, and I keep bringing up that scene from the end of Godzilla King of the Monsters where Godzilla defeats Ghidorah, and then all the other Titans kind of come together,
right,
and like acknowledge Godzilla as the king of the monsters. So it's like you've shown us in this MonsterVerse, you have shown us all these other Titans, all these other cool monsters. So yeah, okay, that monster, that ice creature is cool. I love the tentacle, kind of Cthulhu face deal that it's got going. But we saw it at the end of last episode. We saw it at the beginning of this episode. We didn't have to spend in total about an hour with this one monster when, okay, especially if they're going to escape the way that they end up doing. They spend a lot of this episode on foot in the ice, like trying to get to various places.
Yeah.
Neither group are successful, but they manage again to somehow escape, thank goodness, by the grace of God, Deus Ex Machina. All of a sudden there's a helicopter that picks them all up, and of course the idea was, Kentaro found the base and was able to make contact, but it kind of felt very out of nowhere after the stakes were, oh, she's going to die of hypothermia. He's going to just die frozen in the ground. They're all going to, it just felt like a lot of walking and a lot of talking that didn't have, by next episode, outside of like the couple scenes we saw of the Monarch people, it just doesn't feel like anything in this episode is going to kind of matter.
Very, very, very good point. And here's the thing, like in this episode, they really emphasize that Kentaro's father is important, right? The Monarch people are really obsessed with getting his notes. Tim, your favorite character, Tim, is talking about like, oh, we need to know what whatever Kentaro's father's name is. We need to know what he knows, right? It's like they're real focused on it. At one point, the ice creature, which I have its name right here, I pulled it up. It's called a Frostvark. The Frostvark goes to like suck up May's heat, and it gets the laptop that was Kentaro's dad's laptop, and he freezes it. At the very end, like Kurt Russell pulls it out, and it's all like, ice cubed, and he's like, shit, it's all broken. But there's this big emphasis on how important Kentaro's father's notes are and like his knowledge. What's interesting to me is that this show takes place like after all the MonsterVerse stuff. It takes place after Godzilla versus Kong. So like, what could he possibly know that could be that important in this world?
So that was another question I had. Does this show, because I thought the present day stuff was 2015.
Oh, okay. I did see 2015. That wasn't the stuff that was like in Japan during the art exhibit. That was like the present day stuff in the Arctic.
I don't know. See, now I'm
Shit.
not. Yeah,
I gotta look this up. Okay, you might be right, man. It might be 2015.
because Godzilla, the movie that started the MonsterVerse, takes place in 2014.
Yeah.
So this could and this
Oh,
show is taking place right after G Day in San Francisco.
okay, Danny, you're totally right. I just looked it up. It's
Okay.
2015 is the time with Kate and May and
Yeah,
Kintaro.
so
Okay.
this is actually taking place, I think, between Godzilla and Godzilla King of the Monsters.
Okay, so if I had to guess, right, then probably the thing that Kintaro's father knows, which is sort of like the meat and potatoes of the MonsterVerse, is that like the Earth is hollow and that like monsters can kind of travel through it like real quickly, almost like a fucking like a hyperspace in Star Wars or something. You know, that's how they get around the Earth is through the hollow Earth, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of the main thing of the MonsterVerse. It's like that middle hollow Earth part that like where King Kong goes in Godzilla versus Kong.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's probably what he knows.
I don't know. King Kong has just never been a character I've cared about. And
Yeah.
like it always bothered me that giant radioactive dinosaur like struggles to beat giant monkey. And
Yeah.
I that always bothered me because I was always such a Godzilla fan and I never understood how King Kong even stands a chance. Like humans evolved from like apes, and like if I just picture like a giant human versus Godzilla, we would be killed instantly.
Yeah.
So why is King Kong able to stand up to him? I don't know, but yeah, no, I agree. I think that this show, and again, maybe we're just overreacting, but I hope this show doesn't fall victim to the idea that like as an audience and again I come back to this because this was my biggest problem with Gareth Edwards' original film, the 2014 Godzilla, was in 2014 there's not a person on earth under the age of 30 who didn't know what Godzilla looked like. Yeah. Everyone knows. So when you're making a Godzilla film, you don't have to shroud Godzilla in secrecy. You don't have to make Godzilla this grand reveal. And I just rewatched Godzilla 1954. He shows up within the first 20 minutes.
Right.
Godzilla -1. He shows up in the first 20 minutes and attacks like a military base in Japan. Mm-hmm. And it's like you don't have to hide this character and like save the big stuff for the ending. Right. And I will say the final battle in Godzilla 2014 was fucking epic. It's great. It's just I didn't want to wait 90 minutes of a 2-hour movie to see it. Right. There's this one scene where Godzilla finally, exactly the scene I'm talking about, where you finally see Godzilla, and as you see him, you're like, oh my God, look how cool he looks. And then like the door's shut. And you like cut to something else, and you're like, what? It's like Gareth Edwards was, pardon the expression, we're gross on this channel, but he really edged the viewers there. And I feel like they kind of overcorrected with Godzilla King of the Monsters, and they overcorrected again with Godzilla versus Kong, where it was like, okay, you want monsters? Now there's nothing but monsters. Right. And so I liked the balance that this show had in the first 3 episodes. And I think the show kind of lost a little bit of that balance this week. I'm hoping they just get it back next week and that this is an aberration.
Yes. Oh, man. Yeah, I don't want any more kaiju edging, okay? Like, let's just get right to it, man. We got to get the kaiju money shot,
The thing. Like we before we started recording, we both kind of gave each other a look like, what are we going to talk about with this episode? Because it's like there really isn't much. They're there. They're on the ice. They're running from the monster. They get saved. We get some love story background, And yeah, that's it. That's the whole episode. That's 40 minutes of TV.
Right, right. I mean, if there's anything to like take away from this that's interesting, it's like uh I like that Kintaro's father, like one of his signature signs is that it's like he has these pencil shavings. He's always shaving the pencil. So it's like, oh, we know he's been here because there's these pencil shavings here. I think that's kind of clever. It seems like there's some kind of significance for May's sister. Like she kind of keeps talking to someone on the phone and she's like, you need to get in touch with my sister. Her sister has some kind of significance. That maybe is interesting. I did like Kintaro's art exhibit. It looked cool. And then I liked that he takes May to this special bar to drink whiskey. And she thinks he's put on an act, but he actually is this like talented artist. I liked that. But it's too much filler. And it's so funny because like here we are 25 minutes in, and I just kind of feel like we're just kind of going around in circles.
I mean, If you ask me, would I rather go and watch the Godzilla -1, which was 2 hours and 5 minutes, I'd rather go watch that entire movie again right now than rewatch this episode. And again, there's nothing grossly incompetent about this episode. The acting is fine. I genuinely like the chemistry between Ren Watabe and Kiersey Clemens. I like there's kind of like this sisterly chemistry building between Anna Sawai, who plays Kate, and Kiersey Clemens when Kintaro leaves and they're alone together with Kurt Russell. It's just, I wanted a little bit more meat. This felt like, a lot of salad. And I don't want a second serving of salad. I want more meat. I want more potatoes.
Man, edging and salad. This is a pretty rough date, man. They should
hey,
just
look,
take us
at
right
least
to the
we didn't
whiskey
toss
bar.
the salad, right?
Oh my God. That's a good note to wrap up our Godzilla discussion today.
We're out of here.
But Danny, you do such a good job plugging all the stuff that you put out. So what can fans of the Lastercast that have subscribed, what can they check out on our channel?
So, like I said, Godzilla -1 is legitimately one of my favorite movies of the year. I do a short review of that, about 45 seconds. You can check that out. I'm going to have a short review of a Spanish horror film called The Elderly. I'll probably post that this weekend at some point. Okay. I've been watching a ton of Godzilla stuff. I watched the original. I'm rewatching 2014. I also wanted, as a complete segue to something completely different, okay. I wanted to ask you.
Yes.
And I was going to do a video about this. What are your thoughts on The Black Phone Part 2?
Oh, no. Jesus. I love C. Robert Cargill so much. I listened to his podcast, Junk Food Cinema. I've made this kind of clear that, like, I thought Black Phone had potential to be like truly great, and I think it was okay.
You hated it. It was your worst film of the year last year. We know. You've said it. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think it was bad. Joe Hill is also one of my favorite authors, and C. Robert Cargill, he wrote this thing on Twitter the other day. He was like, "Oh, I was thinking we could make a Black Phone movie," or he's talking to Scott Derrickson, the director, and then they're like, "Okay, well, there has to be a good story," and then they said like 30 minutes later, Joe Hill just messaged them randomly. He's like, "Hey guys, I have a good story for Black Phone 2." I trust in Joe Hill, and so I think that he can make it interesting. I don't know what the hell they would do with a Black Phone 2. They'd have to go ahead.
I've seen a lot of people on social media reacting weirdly about the fact that they announced that Ethan Hawke is going to be back.
Yeah, yeah.
And my response to all of those people, and like this was kind of the impetus for me wanting to do a little video on it, was The Black Phone is a supernatural movie.
Yeah, right.
Like the grabber effectively gets killed because Finney gets help from ghosts. Right. His sister has psychic visions. There's no reason, and this is where I would fucking love to see things. There's no reason that the grabber can't become a Freddy Krueger-esque villain.
Right.
Who is like stalking Finney's sister in her psychic dreams and is looking to like murder kids in a different way now that he was killed at the end of the first movie. So I'm really excited about the potential of a more supernatural movie. That being
Right.
said, if they kind of retcon it or if they try to do an origin story on it, I don't think I'm there for that. I don't want to see that.
No.
But yeah, I just wanted to get your quick take on it because we had a lot of good conversations about that. I know you love the people involved. So yeah, Black Phone 2 I think is coming out next year. I think they're going to start the process of filming soon.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say that for people, if you guys like our channel, if you like me and Danny talking to each other, one major influence for my YouTube channels is Junk Food Cinema, which is Cargill and his friend Brian Salisbury just talking about movies that you and I love. It's like a lot of movies from the 80s and 90s that no one would say is like high art, but still they're like really good movies. It's definitely worth checking out. So you were saying that you are watching a lot of Godzilla stuff. You're gonna you have a Godzilla -1 short. What else you got?
Like I said, I got a short for the elderly coming out, a really good Spanish horror film.
Yeah.
And I got a bunch more 2023 horror to catch up on as we are now in December. Oh my God. And we will be coming out with our top 10 list probably, within the next month or so. Probably, mid-January. We usually like to do that.
Yeah, man. I'm really looking forward to that. That's one of my favorite things to do on this channel. But if you guys enjoyed our show, make sure that you are subscribed. And Danny and I will be back for hopefully a more interesting of Monarch